80 students who have completed their doctoral degree and 40 students who have completed their master's degree. His area of research is energy storage system, optical bidirectional battery charger, modeling, simulation, and control of power electronic system, power electronic system for hybrid renewable AC/DC microgrid, modeling and control of point of load, EV PHEV interface with renewable energy. He has been recognized as a senior member of IEEE and associate editor of IEEE IES ITEN. Further, he also received Best Oral Presentation Award during the technical session, Digital Control of Power Electronics, held in Montreal, Canada. Now, humbly, I would like to call upon Professor R.K. Singh, sir, to start with his session. Welcome, sir.
So thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. Professor K.S. Verma, I can see Professor S.K. Sinha is also logged in, Professor Yogesh Chauhan, fellow colleagues, dear students, a very good morning to you all. So I'll share my screen for my presentation. So can you all see this screen? This slide on the screen?
Yes, sir. Slides are visible.
Yeah. So again, thank you very much. I'm really humbled with this. Professor Yogesh has given me this opportunity to interact with you all. It's really a pleasure to be the part of this session. And I was informed by Professor Yogesh that the theme of this short-term course or this faculty development program is kind of artificial intelligence and power management system. So since in your introduction also you have introduced that I work in the area of power electronics. So I basically will talk about some research and innovation in power and energy and try to give it a power electronics perspective, right? So the contents that I'll be dealing with will be I'll try to define the power processor, because I sincerely believe all the time I used to say with my students, with my fellow colleagues, in various sessions and interactions with my peers, that this is the era of power electronics. I mean, wherever you go, a few years back when I was a kid, I used to hear one statement from Tata's that they say that you hardly can move 10 meters without encountering a Tata product, right? The same logic goes for power electronics here as well. I sincerely believe this fact that without, role of a power electronics, almost nothing is possible as far as the research and innovation in the electrical engineering or electronics engineering or computer science engineering, hardware angle of computer science engineering is concerned. And I try to justify my statement in this session. So then I'll try to basically give you a glimpse of the role of power processor. So power processor is nothing but one way of defining power electronics interface. So how this power processor is becoming important as far as the electrical, electronics and computer science engineering background is concerned, departments are concerned. Then we'll try to identify some of the research and innovation where we can chip in and put in our efforts to develop the new things. Then it is absolutely, any development is derived from the need. So we need to look into the application areas where the research and innovation that are being taken place in the field of power electronics or a power processor, so they can be applied upon. So I'll touch upon some of the modern, predominant, very prevalent application areas where power processors can be used. And these can be applied. So out of those, this battery charging is one of the application area basically where this power processor or power electronics interface can be used. Renewable energy. I mean, almost every active research group all across the world. I mean, I have not found any active research group all across the world who they are actively involved in carrying out the research and innovation activities with their group. They are doing something or other in the field of renewables. Then electric vehicle is another area of research. Talked about research area in the field of power and energy. Then some of the other issues related to this power processor. then future aspects of this power electronics interface, right? And then I try to conclude the talk. So hopefully I am audible properly. Is that not? Am I audible properly?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
very
sir.
crisp
Yes,
and
sir.
clear, sir.
Yes, okay. And again, I request the participants, if you have any doubt, just ping me up in between. You can post your questions in the chat box also. So let us make it an interactive session rather than one unidirectional way of, delivering the things. So with this, now the important, as I said, that it is the era of power electronics, right? So we have to understand why. Why? And the answer lies in when we try to understand basically what is power processor or what is power electronics interface. So that is the first question that we need to ask within us, right? So when we ask such type of question, that what do we mean by power electronics? So the first thing that comes in our mind, I mean, just look at the type of load wherever you are sitting in which part of the country you are sitting in. Just look around yourself and try to find out the type of electrical loads that are there around you. You will find that there are many loads that run on 19 volt DC. There are many loads that run on 5 volt DC, right? There are loads that run on 230 volt 50 hertz single phase AC. There are loads that need, high frequency DC. So just look at the modern world, load demand. So load demand has gone up like anything. It has ramped up like anything in recent time. In recent last 20, 30 years, the kind of development that has taken place, that has actually, that took place in the as far as in order to improve the luxury of the life. So you'll feel that each kind of load need different type of supply, right? And in order to meet out those load demand, how can you meet out those load demand? So but the point is that source is fixed. You are catering all these load demand only with the help of predominantly 230 volt single phase AC, or if it is 3 phase 440 volt 3 phase 50 hertz AC in our country, right? Or in some places you will find the battery is giving you a backup supply, right? So either you have a AC source available at the input, or you have a DC source available at the input. So this AC and DC source has to be processed according to the load demand. So your load may be, next level of AC. It may be a next level of DC. It may be a variable AC, variable DC, high frequency AC, high frequency DC. We don't know what kind of, specification is required at the load terminal. So the important part is that you need to process the available input according to the load demand, and load is quite high. I mean, infinite number of loads are there. N number of loads are there, if not infinite, right? So the basically unit that takes care of this power processing from one to other, from the available input to other, is the power processor or power electronics interface. So just look at it. I mean, power electronics interface says that, okay, guys, just give me the demand of the load, right? And forget about what kind of supply is available at the input, right? If it is able to supply the requisite amount of power that is required by the load, it can process the available input according to the load demand, right? So that is what the power of the power processor. And if you further go into it, you will find that the power processor consists of a power converter. Predominantly, it takes care of the conversion of one type of supply into another type of supply, and it also consists of controller. So role of a converter, as I said, that is responsible for conversion of one type of supply into another type of supply, and the role of a controller basically is to regulate the output. That is very important. Unless you have got the regulation out, unless you regulate the output variables, your application gets limited. So let's say if you have come up with the power processor that basically you cannot control the output voltage and output current, then you have to find out an application area where you can apply your such type of power processor, develop power processor. On the other hand, if you have come up with a power processor that can give you a wide range of voltage regulation and wide range of current regulation, then the application you may find lots of application for such type of development. So controller basically takes care of the regulation of the output, and not only that, it also takes care of the stability of the system. So for small disturbances, for small signal disturbances occurring in the system, either at the load side or at the input side or within the circuit itself, this controller basically takes care of it. So overall, the power processor is there. Just look at it. Power processor says that it gives you the flexibility, the liberty of converting one type of supply into another type of supply according to the load demand, as well as it can give you regulated output. You can change the voltage from, let's say, 100 to 200 volt. I'm just giving one wild number, right? Or you can change the frequency, or you can change the current requirement that is required by the load, etc. And alongside with that, it gives you adequate stability to the system as well. So that is what the power processor is. With the course of this discussion, you will try to understand the power of a power electronics. And that is exactly why I'll again keep repeating my statement that why power electronics is era of power electronics. Without help of power electronics, almost none of the development is possible in electrical engineering nowadays, right? So the point is that, let us kind of look into the elements that are involved in the power converter and controller. So, okay, supply is fixed, AC or DC, right? Load is also, fixed, not fixed. It is. I have taken some of the example loads over here in which this needs one kind of supply. This fan is there, another motor is there, another kind of supply. So this fan is there, another kind of supply, right? But the important part is these two actually make power electronic interface. So if you closely look into the elements that are involved into the power electronic interface, in power converter, you'll find that it basically is made up of semiconductor switches and passive components. You will not find any power converter, consisting of any other element than these three, in fact. One is electromagnetic element, another is electrostatic element, and the switches, right? So these three are the main elements that actually build up a power converter, irrespective of which type of AC to DC or DC to DC. Just think on, if you have ever gone through any of the power converter. By now, many of you have already gone through the different types of power converters many a times. Then just try to contemplate my statement that whether you have seen anything else than these three. So you'll find that okay, no. And as far as the controller is concerned, you have got a compensator that will take care of the respective variable. So if you need to control the voltage, you need to design a compensator, and this compensator basically is nothing but PI compensator, PI controller. We used to call, it's a very popular term in our country, PI compensator, PI controller. So what is PI? PI is nothing but proportional. This proportional part is taken care by this resistance, and integral part is taken care by this capacitance. And you have to actually get one IC for it. So you just configure it in a particular fashion. You will get the controller developed for you for a particular application. And on top, and in addition to that, you will have the pulse width modulation, PWM logic IC will also be there. So these are the elements that are involved in the development of the power electronics interface. So that means if you look at the application areas, right? So you will find that this is automotive application in which this motor is there and cabin is there. The cabin is powered by DC structure. And this motor usually used to be, this BLDC or the induction motors. If it is direct induction motor, you need AC supply, or if it is BLDC motor, so that switching etc. is taken care in the chassis itself of the motor. So you have to provide the DC at different level, right? Then this is a CFL that run at high frequency DC. I mean, solar PV, we know that it produces DC supply, but of the low level. So you need to step it up, then further process it up, then again convert it and make it available for the available equipment, either for the households or industry or whatever, such type of things, right? Then you have got a computer. So this power processor is the CPU is there. In the CPU, you might have heard that okay, SMPS is there. So what that SMPS does? We convert that AC supply into DC supply, then that in the motherboard basically that required almost 250 to 300 amperes of current, and that run at very low voltage. So what you need to do is, and all these things are running, just look at all these things are, if this is there or this is there, the supply is fixed, supply is not going to change for you. So that means, look at the involvement of a power electronics for such type of cases. So that is why without power electronics, forget about anything nowadays. You just take power electronics from off from your life, you will find that nothing is left behind, right? So that means if you summarize, so role of a power processor for us is it processes the available input as per the load requirement, number one. The output voltage or current both has to be regulated, and it gives you regulated operation, right? You can control the voltage, you can control the current, right? And not only that, you can control the input power factor also with the help of power electronics nowadays, right? And it ensures enough stability for small signal dynamic changes, because these small signal dynamic changes used to take place quite often in the system, right? So, and not only that, it also takes care of large signal disturbance up to certain extent, right? So that is what the role of a power processor is. Now, I might have actually, discussed these slides before also in some of my lectures in KNIT, because I usually, quite often deliver lecture in KNIT. I'm very thankful to the professors over there. So perhaps this slide earlier also I had shown, but again, this is a relevant thing to discuss again and again. If you are discussing power electronics, a number of times you can discuss this thing. Because see, if we are researcher, we are the student of power electronics. Prima facie, if you look at this this block diagram, you will observe that where research and innovation is possible in power electronics. Because when I started off my life, Professor K.S. Verma is there. He knows me right from my starting days of my professional career. So when I was learning this power electronics, at that time also I used to think that, where basically I can step in and do something new as far as the power electronics is concerned. Then I went back to the very basic block diagram of it. And then I looked into it and found out that, okay, you can, chip in and do the things, new things, and contribute and come up a new converter topology. So that is, research and innovation is possible in, as far as the converter part is there of power electronics. Or research and innovation is possible, you can improve the controller involved in the power processor, right? You can come up with the new control techniques that actually has, that can give you better stability, better bandwidth, wide range of voltage regulation, that can handle the non-linear system pretty easily, right? It can, it is easy to implement, right? It is easy to execute, right? It requires less memory if it is the digital controller. It has better reliability. Better reliability meaning is it can go for, it can work, it has a longer life, and has the property of giving the adequate and appropriate result, right? With less steady state error, etc., etc. A number of properties you can define. How can you come up with the controller? Similarly, in a converter, you can improve the power density, you can improve the number of outputs, you can reduce the number of elements, you can improve the, depending upon the application, right? One converter can be invented, can be developed, that has the almost completely distinct property of whatever is existing as currently. Or you can, do something in combination of these two. So you can carry out the researches on your converter and controller together. So you will not find, believe me, just think on this. These are the only 3 areas people are coming up, and entire power electronics research is revolving around, these 3-4, points of research. So people are coming up with the new converter, new controller, or they are combination of these two. They are coming up, giving up a new package itself, right? So that is where, so once you identify that, okay, these are the 3 areas, you can do something depending upon the application. Then you need to understand the need of an application, need of a demand, then only you can come in and develop some new things. So having said this, now let us try to move on and look into some of the prevalent application areas where this in the modern world power electronics has found a lot of role, right. So and one of the application area is optimal bidirectional battery charging. So if you look at, I'll try to justify my statement, because battery nowadays has become the integrated part of many applications. It has become the integrated part of many applications, such as space application, such as renewable application, microgrids. If you need to generate the power with the distributed energy resources and make it useful for the local load, you need a battery backup. Electric vehicles, you need a battery. Portable electronics, in your laptop, in your mobile phones, in your toys, etc., you need a battery. So look at this. Battery has become a very important, part in many of the applications. Not only that, telecom exchanges in our country, because utility grid is not available. We don't get 24-hour supply in the remote areas. So if you need to, power the telecom exchanges, either you install a DG set or install a battery bank or supercapacitor, whatever. You need to have some backup supply available with it. So that is why we have observed that a lot of role of power electronics is there as far as the charging and discharging is concerned, because if you monitor the charging and discharging, it may so happen that you can improve the life of a battery, because battery is the unit that actually requires regular maintenance after every 3-4 years. If it is lead acid, it is even in 6 months of time, 1 year of time, it basically lives its life. You need to replace it. Or lithium-ion battery lives a bit longer, right? Depending upon the application, again, I'm saying. So, and microgrid. So microgrid basically, or renewable, as I said that, I will justify these statements with the architecture of the microgrid EVs, etc. That where basically, how can you say that role of power electronics are there? So, because these natural resources are decaying down quite thick and fast. So people are thinking that can we use these non-conventional resources to generate power, enough power at least to power ourselves up, power the locality, to power a house, to power a particular city, so that a burden on the grid actually gets down, or if it can support the generation, right? So there you will see that how the role of power electronics, electric vehicle, plug-in electric vehicle, I can tell you n number of applications, n number of, you cannot actually develop electric vehicle without help of power electronics. And then some other application areas I'll touch upon. So with these, I will move on to my first thing, but is that okay? If you have got any query, please post in the chat box. Otherwise, then we will actually have an interactive session. So till now, if you have anything to clarify, please post in the chat box. I request actually Professor Yogesh to just actually ping me up if any question comes in between. Okay. I'm continuing. Professor Yogesh.
Yes, sir. I will take care of it.
Yes. So please do. Yeah. Now, so moving on. So let us move on and try to understand the this architecture, because it is very important to understand the architecture of this basically EVs, automotive, renewables, etc. Then how the power electronics is involved. So if you look into, you will find that if you look at the automotive application, right? So you will find that the modern automotive applications, basically they run on the dual voltage architecture. So initially in about 2000, right, there was a consortium between IEEE and MIT, and out of many discussions, one discussion was how to improve the power structure of an automotive application, because by that time it was felt that the demand in the automotive application was moving high. It was because the kind of luxury that was being inserted into the automotives were very high, and it was thought of that how to meet out the requirement of such type of power for that upgradation of the automotives. So at that time, 12-volt architecture actually was there for automotive application, but it was felt that the demand has gone up by 4 times. So there were 2 options. Either you actually power the entire thing from the 12-volt architecture, right? But the difficulty would be that you need to lay down a thicker cable, right? Because you need more current, right? So the thicker cable would be there. Or another option is that you basically, have step it up. This 12-volt is have another voltage level of 48 volt, right? And then, so in order to avoid that laying down the thicker cables inside the car, so that will basically disturb the entire aesthetics of the cabin, right? So having discussed those things, it was observed that there were many equipment that were already developed for the 12-volt system. So immediately you cannot condemn whatever have been developed in such a large number or across the world. So it was thought of let us provisionally go for the dual voltage architecture, right? From now on, they will make the devices that will be powered by for 48-volt system, but whatever has already been developed, that will be powered by 12-volt system, right? So that is how a dual voltage architecture came in force, right? So if you look at and this dual voltage architecture, basically the requirement is that this battery will charge this battery, and this battery, this VLO, can charge the VHO, right? So that means you need a bidirectional power conversion system in between that can take care of the things, that can take care of the power flow from left to right or right to left, right? So that is how the automotive applications basically need power electronics. If you look at the electric vehicle architecture, so you'll find the fuel tank is there, IC engine is there. This IC engine drives alternator. Alternator produces AC that is rectified. It is fed to the DC bus. Then that bus, basically, if it is a BLDC motor, directly you can feed it to the motor, or you can invert it also and feed it to the AC motor that is installed on the EVs. And if it is a hybrid electric vehicle, the battery will be installed, and this battery will be charged and discharged through this DC bus bar, right? So it will be charged in right to left direction, and it will be discharged in left to right direction. So when battery is in operation, when this you want to run the entire system with the battery, you have to cut out this one, and the battery will come in place, come in force, right? And it will actually move. The power will be driven from this direction, right? So just look at it. I mean, DC to DC, AC to DC, DC to AC, and all kind of power electronics is involved as far as the electric vehicle is concerned. Now let us move on and look into this microgrid architecture, right? So here also you will find that this solar PV is generating DC power that used to be at less level. So you need to insert another power level here that actually converts this small level DC to a higher value of DC in order to meet out this DC bus requirement, right? So that means a DC to DC power conversion stage is needed here. If you are using a wind power, it will produce AC, and you need to convert that AC into DC, right? So in order to meet out this DC bus structure. Then further you move on and look into the things, you will find that if you need to integrate the battery, as this battery has to be discharged and charged with this DC bus bar, and a bidirectional DC to DC power conversion is required here. So you may use local DC load here, or you invert this DC into AC and use it for local AC load or feed it to the grid, right? So just look at DC to DC, AC to DC, again bidirectional DC to DC, this is unidirectional DC to DC, then DC to AC. So just look at the role of power electronics. So can you think of building a microgrid or harnessing the power from a renewable and making it useful for the load without help of power electronics? Just think of power electronics is taken away from the entire technology. every development will come down to the zero now. At least these applications are concerned, whatever as far as the microgrid, electric vehicle, automotive, battery charging, etc., those things are concerned. So, and look at it, battery is installed here, battery is installed here, battery is installed here. So you will not find actually in the modern application. That's what I'm saying. So why battery has become so much important to us, right? So having said this, now let us move on. I'll take up these things very quickly, one by one. This battery charging, and then the microgrid, and then electric vehicle, and some of the fundamental things, etc., etc. So now moving on, the optimal bidirectional battery charging. So what do we mean by this? See, the point is that we know that battery is an electrochemical device. So when battery is discharged, you need to pump the charge into the electroplates of the battery, right? So what happens when you charge the battery? So there are before this optimal charging technique actually were proposed. Before that, the very crude way of charging the battery was you just plug the battery with the power supply. It will start pumping current into the electroplates. Battery voltage will keep rising. As battery voltage will keep rising, the current will keep down. So let me actually draw this. So the conventional way of charging the battery, when battery voltage is less, you start it charging. So when battery voltage is less, and if you put it on charging, the battery voltage will keep increasing. At the same time, current will reduce, and once battery voltage reaches to its nominal value, current will become zero, right? Because it cannot then further take up current. It cannot sink the current anymore. So this is the current, and this is the voltage. This is known as a boost charging. So, but by doing this, what happens? See, you cannot charge the battery, with a quick rate, because current is coming down. So the rate of charge basically will be less. Slowly it will go down. So on the other hand, optimal charging system says that when battery state of charge is less, right? You charge the battery with a constant current. And battery voltage will keep rising. Once it reaches to its nominal value, your current will come down to the level of very milliamperes range. It is known as trickle current, right?
Sir, sorry to disturb you, sir. And one question is coming from Dr. Ankur Gupta.
Right.
And he has written in the chat box that he want to ask regarding the SMPS. And his question is that if we use isolated SMPS, then SMPS provides low efficiency. So we have to use non-isolated power supply. Could you suggest any method which can increase the efficiency of isolated power supply?
See, Dr. Ankur, this is a very relevant question, no doubt about it. See, there are certain advantages related to the isolated SMPS and certain disadvantages also related to the non-isolated category. So the main issue with this isolated category is the involvement of the transformer in between, because you need to provide the galvanic isolation between input and output, and the galvanic isolation can only be provided with the insertion of this electromagnetic device that is known as a transformer. So the important point is that apart from other losses like switching losses, conduction losses, etc., that are there in the non-isolated category, the addition of this transformer loss basically makes the isolated SMPS efficiency gets down a bit gets down as compared to the non-isolated category. But I mean, coming back to your point, see how can we improve the basically efficiency of the isolated class of transformers? So there are many methods that have been proposed. You can go for the soft switching method. See, you cannot basically completely eliminate the transformer loss. You can optimize only. So you can optimize in a way to design these core and these wires judiciously according to the application, so that it may not be overused or underused, number one. And as far as your switching losses and other conduction losses are concerned, there are many switches nowadays that they give very less conduction losses. And in order to improve the switching losses, that means reduce the switching losses, you can go for the soft switching system. So soft switching system meaning is you just apply zero voltage switching, you just apply zero current switching, etc. So with these techniques, right, these techniques, these modifications can be done in the power stage of the system. So if you just carry out these things in the power stage of the system, you can get a bit better efficiency in the isolated class of converter. Further, controller also is responsible for, I can tell you, in increasing the efficiency if you are operating the entire system, So you may ask that why. So if your controller basically is kind of, looking after the things, proper switching sequences are being generated, it is taking care of the many of the inferences that actually take place in the printed circuit board. So that also actually is there. With that way, you can improve the efficiency of the switch mode power supply. Another way of improving it, that when you design the printed circuit board, take care that all the design layout rules in the printed circuit board is taken care of or not. So because if you are not taking care of the design rules, then what will happen? Unnecessary electromagnetic interferences will come in, right? Or the track length will become more, etc. So these are certain practical aspects by which we can improve the efficiency of the isolated class of converters. Yeah, Dr. Ankur, you can interact if you want.
Yeah, so actually currently we are working on...
So, I cannot hear you properly.
Yeah, so currently we are working on UCC 3843 PWM IC, but facing the problem of low efficiency. So that we go through with the top switch, Motorola top switch, and like these switches, and remove the transformer. That's why.
See, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you remove the transformer, you can get rid of the losses associated with the transformer. But if your requirement is such that you need an isolation in between the input and output, right, then you have to put in the transformer in between. So if you are dealing with the isolated class of transformer, your question is exclusive that how can you improve the efficiency of isolated class of transformer?
Yes, sir.
So you go for the soft switching technique that will definitely improve your switching losses, right? You design your transformer properly, right? Taking care of all the design layout rules. And once you are implementing it into the printed circuit board, take care that all the design layout rules associated with the development of printed circuit board should be taken care of. So these 3-4 things will definitely improve your efficiency. By the way, how much efficiency you are getting out of it?
82, approximately 82-83% efficiency.
For how much power level?
Approximately 68 watt.
68 watt. No, it's less than. Just a minute. I mean, actually, I'm getting a phone call. Just a minute. I'll be back, right? Yeah, so I mean, 82% efficiency is a bit low. So just take care of it. Something is going wrong with your implementation, I think.
Yeah, so currently I'm working on ferrite core actually, and change the ferrite core accordingly.
Can you bit loud, Dr. Ankur? I mean,
sir, yeah sir, actually अभी हम ना ferrite core पे ही actually इसके लिए काम कर रहे हैं. Ferrite core जो है वो हमने change किया है उसके लिए. तो शायद उससे efficiency increase हो. Sir, could you suggest any method to decrease the EMI and EMC effect on the circuit?
EMI and EMC in the circuit can be reduced by, that's what I said, by taking care of the proper PCB design layout rule. So if you, go and look into how you actually design your PCB. So there are some 13-14 important rules for designing a PCB, right? For the design and development of a PCB. So those rules if you take care of, then up to certain level you can actually take care of those EMI EMC issue. Number one. Number two, otherwise you have to make some constructional or topological changes into the converter itself. Because if it is a voltage source driven converter, then it is prone to EMI and EMC. Jet source converters and impedance source converters, basically they have better performance as far as the EMI and EMCs are concerned. You are muted, Dr. Ankur.
या सर एक्चुअली ट्रांसफार्मर की जो प्राइमरी है उस पे क्या प्रॉब्लम आ रही है हमारी कि जैसे हमने मॉसफेट यूज किए हैं तो मॉसफेट को हमने जिस हीट सिंक पे लगाया वो एंटीना की तरह से वर्क कर रहा है और उसकी वजह से जो है आसपास के जो कंपोनेंट्स हैं वो भी इफेक्टेड हो रहे हैं उसकी वजह से। तो हमने ट्रांसफार्मर शील्डिंग भी यूज करी थी एक्चुअली आई प्रेस मैन में इसका कुछ प्रोसीजर दिया हुआ है बट वो भी कोई मेथड।
आप एक काम करेंगे क्या, आप अपना जरा सा जो आपने डेवलप कर रहे हैं उसका एक पिक कर लेके भेजिए, हम बता देंगे आपको कहाँ गड़बड़ हो रहा है।
ओके सर, डेफिनेटली
अगर आपका कोई मतलब IPR इशू नहीं हो तो इफ यू कैन शेयर।
सर कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। मैं अभी पुष्पुल टेक्निक पे काम कर रहा था तो मैं आपको उसके लिए एक भेजता हूँ मैं।
Correct.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I would like to, sir.
Yeah, yes.
Sir, I would request Professor Saurabh Gupta to turn off his video and Professor Anuradha Singh to turn off her video. Professor Saurabh Gupta, please turn off your video.
प्रोफेसर योगेश, एक रिक्वेस्ट है, मैं थोड़ा सा 20-25 मिनट में कंक्लूड कर दूं तो चलेगा ना?
हाँ, कोई इशू नहीं है सर, कोई।
क्योंकि मुझे थोड़ा सा अर्जेंटली अभी जाना पड़ेगा, तो मैं ट्राई करूंगा कि जल्दी से चीजों को कवर करूं। तो लेट अस मेक इट मोर इंटरेक्टिव रादर आफ्टरवर्ड्स आल्सो। यस, सो शुड आई कंटिन्यू?
Yes, sir.
हाँ, so now moving on, and if you look at kind of this is the way the optimal battery charging system, basically what happens, it runs on as I said that when battery state of charge is less, it has to be operated with constant current mode. That means current should be constant, and when voltage reaches to its nominal value, the current should come down. So in that process, what will happen? The entire circuit will behave as a current source, right? When it is operating in CC mode, and entire circuit is behaving as a voltage source when the circuit is operating in CV mode, right? So out of those, this is known as CCCV charging. And as far as the optimal battery charging meaning is concerned, I said that to charge the battery in a minimum possible time and for its maximum possible life, right? So that is what one method of achieving that optimal battery charging. Another method is pulse charging. In this, what they say that you charge the battery with a constant pulse and have some relaxed time. So by doing this, it was observed that it neutralizes battery internal electrolytes, right? Because what happens, that the charge basically is pumped onto the electroplates, and you are giving some time to actually spread it over. So by doing this, the charge density that is there on your electroplates will be reduced. So that's how you can further increase the life of a battery. Another method is the reflex charging method. So in the reflex charging, what happens? We have a positive charging pulse and a negative discharging pulse followed by the rest time, right? So the positive charging pulse, what happens? They say that you charge the battery with a constant current, and for certain period you withdraw the charge, right? So what happens? You are dumping the charge on electroplates and pulling it back for certain period, right? Some charge particles you are pulling it back. So by doing this, you are giving even better way to spread those charges basically all over the electroplates. So that is how you are reducing the charge density of electroplates, and that is how you can increase the life of a battery. So these three are the optimal charging techniques. So one development that basically took place in this particular area is that how to achieve that. So the whole objective was how to achieve this entire optimal battery charging system. So one method was this. CEA is basically known as current error amplifier, and VEA is known as voltage error amplifier. So they run basically this current error amplifier and voltage error amplifier in parallel, right? And a changeover switch basically was installed at the output of this in order to force the transition between one to other, right? But the problem with this technique was that when charger was, under CC mode, it was fine. When charger was under CB mode, it was also fine. But when there was a transition from CC to CB, that means your circuit has to behave from current source to voltage source, right? So under such situation, what will happen? The transition is getting unsmooth. So when transition is getting unsmooth, all right, and it is a substantial period. If battery charging takes about, let's say, 1.5 hours, this transition actually, this unsmooth transition stage used to be about 20-30 minutes. So during this period, entire charger is getting confused whether to operate as a current source or a voltage source. It is flipping between these two. It is swapping the operation between one to other, right? And that is how the life of a battery basically, and the charging time of the battery is getting affected, right? So that is one of the issues that were there in the earlier development of this. So it was thought of, and then in our research group, we thought of actually how can we improve upon these things. So we thought of that we will develop a power electronics interface that will consist of a DC to DC converter and a controller, right? And that will basically take care of the smooth transition from CC to CV, this one, right? And it will take care of all the existing charging techniques. So if you let's go back, so it will take care of the CCCV charging. It can adapt the CCCV charging. It can adapt the pulse charging. It can adapt the reflex charging, right? So that is what the whole purpose of this development was. So with that, we thought of that we'll actually develop the things with the wired batteries charging system as well as with the wireless system. So in that, the first objective was to develop a power converter. I think Dr. Ankur, you please try to give some attention on this particular thing. This will you may find some of the answers here itself, right? So if you look at the buck converter, this is a non-isolated class of converter. So the main objective was to develop a power converter first for that particular, the objective was what? To develop converter and controller. And in order, these are what the requirements. So we moved on and looked into the buck converter. Buck converter, a very easy converter, very easy to implement, everything linear. But what happened? If you look at the buck converter operation, you will find that input is pulsating. So when input is pulsating, that you cannot afford of giving a pulse input, and unsmooth input to the battery, right? Because it is jumping one to other, right? So that is why for battery charging applications, such type of converter may not be okay. Then we moved on to the boost converter. When we looked into the boost converter, we found out that it is a highly nonlinear converter. Why? Because when we further looked into the detail aspect of it, then we found that okay, if you carry out the dynamic analysis of a boost converter, you will find that it is because of the right half plane zero occurring into the system. So we all might have studied this fact till now that when all the poles are lying in the left half plane, right, the system will be stable. If any pole lies in the right half plane, system will become unstable. If all the zeros are lying in the left half plane, system will be stable. But have you thought of if any zero lies in the right half plane, then what will happen? So that means zero occurring in the right half plane may or may not make the system unstable, but it will create a lot of problem for you, right? And because of that, with the boost converter, you cannot go high up with the load current, because when you go high up with the load current, this right half plane zero moves toward the origin, and you start facing problem. So the first challenge was to take care of that part, so to eliminate the right half plane zero. and we did certain modifications into it. So we connected. So this is the boost converter. This is prima facie a boost converter in which a inductor is there at the input and output side both, right? And these two inductors basically we magnetically coupled these two together and inserted a series RD-CD network into the system. So by doing this modification, we found out that the right half plane zero got eliminated. I request ISIS, I've got little time, I cannot explain everything. So I request all of you to go visit my home page. You will find out the respective paper in the IEEE Explorer, and you can download and get the further information about it. So the important point is what? With this modification in this converter, right, the right half plane zero problem was solved. So now you have got a converter that has inductor sitting in both sides. So that means you have got smooth current from either of the side. You have got no RSP zero problem. So you can go high up with the load current, complexity of the controller, etc. gets solved. So this is the modification we carried out in the boost converter. Then we moved on. But if you look at this converter, you will find that passive components are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as many number of passive components, you will have so many number of state variables into the system. And if you have got many state variables, the system becomes complex. So in order to avoid that, we thought of, can we reduce the number of elements also. So we did certain things, and here we removed this element, this RD-CD network, and increase the ESR component, equivalent series resistance component of this capacitor. So that is how one state variable was reduced. So here you will fuel count 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it was giving 5 by 5 matrix, but it is giving only 4, right? So the number of state variables were reduced, and we could able to get the same operation out of it. So we applied the same philosophy on other converters also. I will skip the slides here. So here basically what happens, if you look at this converter, right, this one. So this converter we have implemented it, on the we developed a prototype for that. And if you look at the dynamic response here, frequency response, you will find that in the buck operation also, you don't have any right half plane zero. If you would have been right half plane, supposing here at this terminal point, frequency point, if there would have been a right half plane zero, so it will act as a zero. Zero meaning is it will give you plus 20 dB per decade, in the gain plot boost. And at the same frequency, you will get minus 90 degree phase dip here, minus 90 degree phase dip. So basically, but such type of situation is not arising here. That means right half plane zero is not there. Similarly, for boost operation also, we may find that right half plane zero is not there. So some of the other, the same philosophy had been, implemented on some of the other converters. Now coming on to the, the controller design, the changes that were made in the earlier converter. So if you just remember, there this current error amplifier and voltage amplifier were running in parallel, and a changeover switch was connected at the output. But in this scheme, what is happening? The current error amplifier and voltage amplifier are connected in cascade, and the variable voltage feedback clamping circuit is connected at the output. And this variable voltage feedback clamping circuit is nothing but this one, right? So again, I will request you, I have got, limited time. So please go through it. You will find that, how basically, and with this, what happens, the unsmooth transition of that CCCV, that from current source to voltage source property was solved. So, and the basically converter remained under complete feedback control in all modes of operation. So with this modification, these are some of the results that I will basically show you. This is the experimental charging result of 6 volt 4.5 ampere hour battery, right? So here you can see that when battery voltage is less, right, it is being charged with the constant current, all right, and when battery reaches to its nominal value, the current is coming down, and voltage is stabilized here. And at this point in time, you can see that nothing is, that unsmooth zone is avoided, right? So this is experimentally verifying the fact, and the same thing basically with the same architecture, you can it can adapt the this pulse and reflex charging. So this is the reflex charging adaptability. This is the pulse charging adaptability. Now the things can be done with the wireless system as well. So now, first of all, the point is that why wireless? So the answer is that, I mean, you don't have any conduction losses because nothing is connected. You don't have any spark because you don't have any physical connection. And if it is, wireless is considered as a smarter because no messy wires are there. And there are many applications where wireless power transfer basically used to be considered as safer, way of power transfer, like in medical implants. You don't need any wire connected to it. So it is, very, easy and safe way of transferring the power for such type of application. And it has got, wider durability as well. So the point is that it can basically, the power can be transferred through electromagnetic induction and electrostatic induction. So we actually did try, transferring the power in our lab by using both these methods. I'll share these slides with you, so you can go through all these details. All right. So this is one of the, circuit with which we have transferred the power wirelessly by using inductive coupling. So up to, this is the old data. Now we have transferred the power up to 12 centimeters, right? This is a steady state result. And this, with this circuit, basically, we could able to achieve the CCCV charging with a smooth transition. The whole purpose was to transfer the power wirelessly, all right, without any jerk into CC to CV, right? And by using magnetic coupling. So this was the overall circuit, and this is the circuit with the inductive coupling. So here also, capacitive coupling. So in this case also, we can see that when battery state of charge is less, all right, it is being charged with the constant current. And when battery charge reaches to its nominal value, the current comes down, all right. And these are some of the steady state results that could be obtained for using the capacitive coupling. And for this, I think we could able to achieve 6 centimeters of the power transfer wirelessly. So now, just a minute. So anything to clarify in this one? So,
no query, sir. We have received in the chat box.
Okay. योगेश जी, थोड़ा सा अर्जेंटली हमको जाना पड़ेगा, 5 मिनट में मैं कंक्लूड कर सकता हूँ ना?
हाँ सर, श्योर, कोई इशू नहीं है।
ठीक है। So मैं जल्दी से थोड़ा सा, सॉरी एक्चुअली जो
no issue, sir, no issue.
Yeah. So microgrid. Now coming to the microgrid, just look at it. In the conventional microgrid, what happens? We have seen this one, right, where so many power conversion stages are there. So my definition of, I thought of that, can we think of reducing the number of stages here? So, and, can develop a microgrid or renewable power based power electronics interface that accept both DC power and AC power, and it can give both DC and AC in one single stage. So by doing this, you can get rid of these many number of power conversion stages. So eventually, this was the overall plan. So you can reduce the number of power stages and get all these things done in one single conversion stage. So that is the another way of one of the advancements that can be thought of in the microgrid application. So these are some of the things that we have done. As I said, I share all these slides with Professor Yogesh, so please go through that. So here, with this architecture, what you can do, you can basically, it can evaluate the type of input available at its terminal. And if it is AC supply available at terminal, this rectifier stage gets enabled. If it is DC supply is at the input terminal, it gets bypassed and basically give DC supply at this input, right? So with this, control arrangement, power control arrangement, it can evaluate the type of supply at its input and can give you, then the process power accordingly. And if you just feed this input supply here, feed this input supply to the converter that has been, developed here. So this input, it takes one input as a DC and gives AC output and as well as the DC output here, right? So with this, I mean, if you just connect in cascade, you can actually realize this system. So this system, this versatile, power conversion is nothing but the combination of this in cascade with this, right? So that particular arrangement will give you flexibility to accept both AC and DC together, as well as it can give you AC and DC simultaneously in one single conversion stage. So now moving on to the electric vehicle applications. So there are different some types of architectures. One is the series, hybrid, parallel, and fuel cell. So out of these, the popular one is this one, and we have already discussed this architecture: fuel tank, driving IC engine, generator, and then DC bus, battery. This one. So if you look at, as I said, that so much power conversion stages are there: DC to DC, AC to DC, DC to AC. So much power conversion stages are there. So can we think of, just for your contemplation, can we think of developing a power processor, right, that has the property of AC to DC as well as DC to DC or DC to AC? So what I mean to say, whenever, as and when whatever is required, if it is the charging is required, the entire power processor becomes DC to DC. When propulsion mode is required, the entire power processor becomes DC to AC inverter, right? Same power processor. So it will configure and reconfigure itself accordingly, so that the same set of passive components and switches basically can connect and reconnect themselves according to the need of a power conversion. So by that way, again, you don't need so much power conversion stages. With the one single set of passive component and switches, you can get the things done for charging mode as well as propulsion mode. So we carried out again the same things here. I will skip all these slides. I'm sorry. Some of the steps that can be thought of as a next generation technology in the power electronics is the using Internet of Things, right? And monitoring and controlling all these power processors remotely. So we have also started off doing all these things. So how can we analyze the historical data available from the load terminal or from the supply terminal and predict a model and use that model for a control logic, so that all the power processors can be operated remotely with the help of your mobile or tab or tablet, whatever in your hand. So that means using data analytics and predictive technology, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, machine learning for making a smart grid infrastructure, for making a smart home infrastructure. So we actually did initial analysis, initial thing, implementation in our lab, and wherein we run the buck converter remotely. So this buck converter, basically switch was connected with a microcontroller, and a dedicated PC was assigned to that. The microcontroller was actually governed by the dedicated computer, and the program was written in that computer, and the program was also written there in the remotely in the mobile phone. So the students were sitting in the hostel and they were giving the command, and here the controller was being operated remotely, right? So these are some of the results, steady state and dynamic results, right? So this group of students actually had done that analysis. Now, some of the future aspects, we can see that role of a power electronics is there very soon. In the Western countries, we have already seen that industrial robots have actually taken over. Role of a power electronics is there in greener and cleaner world, right? in electric vehicles or in a such a high power computer. So this computer is there that is acting as a computer, as a laptop, as a fax machine, as a scanner. So all these multiple operations can be achieved from this particular unit. So without help of power electronics, I mean, or in other way, the role of power electronics is there in all these applications, right? So now coming on to the, I mean, I basically will share this definition of Professor Philip T. Crane, how he has defined power electronics. He said that you take electronic and devices, you take systems and control, you take power and energy, make a triangle of that, take the median of each line, right, and join each line. So whatever will be there inside, that will be power electronics. So power electronics basically is nothing but it is a combination of electronics and devices. It has circuits, magnetics, power semiconductors. It has to deal with switch control. It has to deal with feedback control, etc. It has to process the energy, power, and it has to process the power. It has to drive. So role of a power electronics is almost everywhere, right? Now, yeah. So this is I may skip it up. So in conclusion, what I'll say that this power electronics has become the integral part of the modern development. It has got a role in clean and green world, and we have got lots of scope of research in optimal battery charging, microgrid, electric vehicle, etc., etc. So these are some of the information of my group. So funding status at present, publication 28 has already been achieved, 53 conferences, 2 book chapters, 3 PhD has graduated, and 3 is already in pipeline. So 8 are ongoing. 53 is 2 masters have already graduated, 5 are ongoing, 2 research associates are there. And further information, you can visit my homepage and get the information there. This is a perfectly updated homepage. So thank you very much. Yogesh ji.
Thank you, sir. We are happy to have such an interactive session, and the energy, sir, you put in this session to clear the doubts of the participants were very good. I thank you, on the behalf of entire KNIT family, and we are highly honored to have you as an expert in this FDP. We would like to thank you for the ideas you shared with us, further sharing the need of power processor and highlighting the importance and future aspect of power electronics. Further discussing the latest architecture of EV, HEV with the participants. Also, the layout of optimal battery charging system and various charging techniques and challenges with the charging method. Sir, you shed light on how to integrate power processor with IoT. With this, I hope that this session is highly beneficial for the listeners, and we are highly obliged for you for sharing your valuable time. We hope to see you again for such knowledgeable sessions. Once again, sir, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I had to rush basically. Sorry, Yogesh ji and participants.
No issue, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. So,
and participants are basically appreciating that it is a very informative session, sir.
Thank you very much, everyone. And if you have any query, please get in touch with me through email. I'll be happy to answer.
Yes, sir. We are getting lot of appreciation from the participants.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. So may I leave, Yogesh ji, now?
Sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much.